Not gonna lie, I originally started this video and then I forgot to hit record on my mic. So, take two. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Cashed Out. Obviously, I'm a little bit rusty. It's been a little bit of a hiatus for me, but I'm back to it and excited to get a chance to be able to chat with you guys here today. And I wanted to talk through, I honestly wanted to do almost like a year in review in terms of my experience with the Lumix S5II. It'll be about a year now in February that I've owned and used this camera. I actually got two of them as my A and B camera for our media production company. And these cameras have been absolutely rock solid. I have not had any issues with the Lumix S5II, and I wanted to talk about my experiences. I actually wanted to go through some different shoots that I've done throughout the year and just some of the things that I've learned, some of the features that have been really beneficial to me with the Lumix S5II within those shoots. So I think it'll be a cool way to kind of give you a little bit of my experience while talking through some different situations that I've had the opportunity to shoot this year. I switched over to the Lumix S5II about a year ago because I was shooting the Canon R3 and the Canon R6, the Mark I, not the Mark II, and that was my setup. I had my A and B cameras. My A was the R3 and my B was the R6, and that setup was okay, but I kept running into issues with color grading, trying to match the colors between those two, and also the overheating of the R6 just kind of made it a little bit of a headache to deal with. So that's why I looked into the Lumix S5II, and it's been absolutely rock solid for me. And one of the first shoots that I wanted to talk about, and it kind of hits on those two features in terms of having the ability to not overheat and to be able to do sustained shooting, was the Man and Women of Promise conference. I had the opportunity to be called on to shoot it and basically capture the day and then create kind of a recap highlight video of the event. And the conference is basically held in like a banquet hall. So they had banquet seatings, they had round tables all over, and then they had a stage. Obviously the speakers went up in there. Some of the speakers talked in the crowd, so they walked through the different seatings. So it was a little bit of a mix of both. So for my setup, I had the Lumix S5II on a tripod at the back of the room, and that was shooting on as continuous capture for the stage. And then I had a second tripod, which I would have the 70 to 200 on there, and I would also switch and go from the tripod to the gimbal and pop on the 50mm just to get some different B-roll shots. So that was my setup. I had the continuous recording going on in the back of the room, and one of the features that really came through for me with this was the 6K open gate recording with the Lumix S5II. And this was absolutely huge for me because since I had the continuous recording going on from that one angle with that camera, shooting it at 6K and being able to punch in, punch out, kind of create some different angles and different framing using that one shot, that one position, was really helpful because whenever certain speakers, were making impactful points, I was able to punch in and not lose any details, not lose any data when I punched into that shot. That 6K open gate was one of the features that really helped me a lot. It allowed me to be able to create some really unique and different angles from that one location. And then the continuous recording, the limitless recording, there's no recording limit on the Lumix S5II, and they don't overheat. They're absolutely awesome. They just kept going. I was shooting, so a speaker would probably talk for about, I think, 40 to 45 minutes. So I was basically shooting 6K continuous for about 40 to 45 minutes, and then I would stop the recording when they were transitioning or changing speakers and stuff like that. But in that whole, there was a 4-hour event. In that whole 4 hours, didn't have any overheating, didn't have any issues at all with the 6K. All the footage turned out awesome, and I was able to use it however I needed to. So no overheating, unlimited recording, and just absolutely fantastic in terms of the experience capturing that with the Lumix S5II. Now, the camera bodies for the S5II are super lightweight, and this was another asset for me during this shoot, is that I had the Lumix S5II with a 50mm 1.8 mounted on the DJI RS2, and I was basically using that to be able to capture some different B-roll shots of, the students coming in, the different speakers, different things like that. And it was really helpful to be able to have that lightweight option because I could float around, didn't have a huge setup that I was lugging around trying to shoot with, and it just made things so much easier, especially doing like follow shots, some different angles, things like that. So the lightweightness of the Lumix S5II paired with a DJI RS2, perfect combination for me on that day. Now, the next shoot that I wanted to talk about was actually for a wedding venue called Stone Lake Meadows. Stone Lake is a new up-and-coming wedding venue here in the Cincinnati area. They provide tremendous value, really good people. Kelly and her team are absolutely awesome, but they wanted me to be able to capture a video basically giving brides a preview of the experience of coming to Stone Lake. So basically some of the amenities, some of the outside setup. We had like a mock outdoor wedding setup, and then one wanted me to go in and do a tour of the entire venue. So this is what was the general idea. And what's crazy about this shoot is that it was in the middle of summer, so it's like the middle of July. It was incredibly hot and muggy, and it was during that time where, I don't know if you guys remember all the forest fires in Canada or whatever was going on up there in Canada. And apparently there was a lot of like smog, smoke, and contamination just kind of floating around the air. So the air was really cloudy, really mucky. Actually, it made for a really cool drone shot because you can kind of see almost like the fog or the smog coming around the building. Free smog, it was easy. I didn't need a fog machine to be able to make that. It just basically came naturally. But it made for some cool effects, but it was really not the best environment to be able to shoot in. It was hot, it was foggy, really not the best conditions. And I was excited to be able to actually use this camera in that situation just to test it out. And some of the features that came through, once again, the cooling system. I had no issues overheating with this camera. I was outside probably shooting for maybe about 30 to 45 minutes, just capturing different things with the outdoor setup. No overheating issues at all. The camera didn't even get hot. I was really impressed with those features on it. The other feature that really came through for me during this shoot was actually the custom white balance settings. And I've talked about this in some of my previous videos, but the custom white balance settings allow you to be able to set custom white balance scenes. So you can save one scene for outside, one scene for inside, one scene for the bride's room, one scene for the groom's room. So that made it super easy for me to be able to bounce around from one location to the other, still keep my aperture settings, and just have the white balance tweak super easy. So that was really helpful as I was shooting through and going through the tour and capturing Stone Lake Meadows. The next shoot that I got to do was for a company called the Athlete's Mental Playbook, and I got an opportunity to interview the CEO, Emma Ivanko, of the company. And Emma is absolutely a rock star. She's an up-and-coming leader, and her and her team are doing a phenomenal job, doing phenomenal things for athletes. And I'll link them in the bio just to give you guys a little bit of an idea of what they do. But Emma asked me to be able to come in and capture her story, be able to tell her story as an athlete and some of the challenges that she went through in terms of the mental aspect of athleticism. A lot of times athletes are obviously known for their physical prowess, but not many people care or think about what their mental health is looking like. So I had a great opportunity to go up to Indiana and capture Emma. We basically did the standard interview setup. So we had, the 2-camera setup, interviewed her in the office, captured some B-roll footage of her and her book and some of the different aspects of the office. And that was all normal, nothing crazy. Basically the settings, the features were just pretty standard there. What I really wanted to highlight in terms of the shoot was when we went outside. We actually went outside to a small park next to her office and basically got an opportunity to capture some B-roll footage of her kind of playing around with some of her lacrosse equipment and, just kind of her out in nature, just some casual B-roll footage to be able to tie it into the final product that we were going to produce for her. And the image stabilization on the Lumix S5II was absolutely fantastic. And I'll have to tell you, I wasn't a fan of handheld shooting until I got the Lumix S5II. And this thing, the image stabilization on here is absolutely awesome. And pairing it with a nice rig setup, and I know I've mentioned this a couple of times, but I am planning to do a video on my rig setup for this Lumix S5II, because that rig setup allows me to be able to have nice balancing, weight management of my setup. And that's made it so much easier to be able to capitalize on that image stabilization, because the image stabilization is pretty rock solid. It's really good. I was shooting at about 60 FPS and then just slowed down the footage for some of the B-roll shots, and turned out really good. I really didn't even need any stabilization in post based off of that footage. And I've done this several times in different shoots. Some of the shoots I was actually backpedaling, and the image stabilization did a really good job of just kind of staying rock solid. The last shoots that I wanted to highlight were actually a couple wedding shoots that I got to do. One of them was early in the spring, and the other one was early in the fall. And these wedding shoots gave me an opportunity to be able to test out the high ISO performance of the Lumix S5II. And I'll tell you, this thing passed it with flying colors. When one of the wedding shoots, the one in April, we're actually in downtown Cincinnati. The bride and groom wanted to get some photos towards like sunset. So the sun was actually almost down. So it was pretty dark outside. You had a little bit of street lights going on. Obviously the photographer had her flash and things like that, but I only had the Lumix S5II and my 50mm 1.8. And we went outside, basically used some of the lighting from the street lights, and I cranked the ISO up to, I think it was over 12,000 ISO, and using the 50mm 1.8, absolutely looked awesome. I didn't have any issues. I was able to get really good usable footage. I had to do a little bit of cleanup in post, so it didn't take much time. It really wasn't like terrible. It wasn't like totally wrecked out. So the high ISO performance was really good. And I had a similar thing with the other wedding. We were basically shooting at sunset, and in this case, I was actually shooting with the Lumix S24-70, so it was an f2.8 lens, so it wasn't able to get it as wide open as the 50mm. So I had to crank up the ISO a little bit higher. I think I might have gotten even close to 15,000 maybe. I was still able to get really good usable footage. Did obviously a little bit denoising in post with Resolve for that one, but the footage turned out really good. It looked really good, and being able to use that high ISO allowed me to use my 24-70, even though it's not down to 1.8. I could still use that 24-70, and that actually helped me a ton in being able to capture that image, capture the footage, capture their story the way that I wanted it to capture it. So the high ISO performance for this thing has been really awesome. That's obviously not going to be like clean and super perfect as, you know, the Sony's A7S III or whatever. You're not going to get that kind of level of performance, but it's really, really good. Most of the time, I'll stay within about the 4,000 ISO range. 4,000 to 6,400 is kind of the range that I'll go in on the high end. And then on the low end, most of the times I'm about that 800 area. And that's served me really well. The images turn out clean, they turn out nice, and I don't have a ton of work to do in post trying to clean up noisy images. The footage in this thing has been absolutely awesome, and it's really been able to take on anything that I've thrown at it over the past year. So overall, the Lumix S5II has been an absolute great investment for my business. I don't regret it at all, you know, being able to make the jump. It was a little bit scary, you know, kind of not really being sure what Panasonic had grown into, but making the switch over, kind of transferring from Canon over to Panasonic has been an absolutely awesome decision. So if you're looking at this camera, if you're interested in picking up this camera, I'll link it in the description below. Definitely check it out. Obviously the links are affiliate links, so those will help support the channel, but definitely check it out if you're in the market for it. I cannot recommend this camera enough. No matter what I'm doing, whether it's photo or video, it just works. It does the trick. I don't have any issues. It's got the dual memory card slots, and I don't know what else to say about this thing. It's an absolute rock star. Whether it's YouTube content creation or, you know, client work, it's absolutely knocked it out of the park. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully it helped you out in terms of learning more about this camera. If you like this video, be sure to like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and tune in next time right here on Cashed Out. Take it easy, guys.